Hi, welcome to Matters of Substance podcast. This is Chris Ray with the Porter County Substance Abuse Council / Hub Coalition, which is our new name. We're rebranding that right now. I'm not your usual host, you may notice. Carly is a little bit under the weather, and Caitlin is otherwise occupied at the moment. So you guys are stuck with just me. But I've got two incredible guests with us this afternoon. I don't know when you're listening to this, but we're recording actually late morning. So I will let them introduce themselves, and we will talk a little bit about an exciting program they're doing here in Porter County.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sam Burgett. I'm the police social worker at Valpo Police Department.
Hello, I'm Jeff Balon, Chief of Police for the Valparaiso Police Department.
All right. They are in the middle of implementing, I'm not sure where we're at in the rollout, but a program called PARI. So I will let them describe to you exactly what this is.
Well, the PARI program is called the Police Assisted Recovery Initiative. Before we go into exactly what that is, I'd like to maybe talk about the overview of how it came about and the concept behind it. So I became Chief of Police in 2017. About a year or two before that is when you started to hear nationally a little bit about police social work and what that looks like and what it's about. So when I became the chief, I felt that it was important that we bring a police social worker into the mix to augment and help our police officers deal with issues that may be outside of their span of control and something that maybe they didn't have a lot of information on. And that's dealing with homelessness, mental health, and substance dependency to help with recovery and things like that. So what I did is started looking at police social work and how to fund that, where to find someone that could be in that position. I wanted a master's degree level person. Fortunately, through conversations and making it known that I wanted to do this, we were able to receive funding for a police social worker through HealthLink. With that, we found Sam. And Sam has been vital to our organization and the success of the police social work division. So what I really want to do, and I think Valparaiso, as we've talked many times, I feel Valparaiso is the mecca for services for mental health, homelessness, substance dependencies in Porter County. So why not embrace this as a police organization? Now, it doesn't take away from the law enforcement perspective, okay? But if you're going to embrace mental health, substance dependency to recover when someone's in jail, so when they get out, they're productive citizens and they can contribute to a positive approach in the community. Why not try to get some of that going before in a non-arrest situation or a minor offense? Because sometimes, minor offenses obviously could lead to large offenses. Well, if we identify people who need services prior to this, before services, when our officers are coming into contact with them on a regular basis, let's get them help they need before that escalates. And with that being said, that's what this program, I feel, is going to help. It's going to help maybe reduce, well, I know it will reduce crime, but what I think it's going to do, it's going to get the individuals the help that they need before that. So with that, we were able to find Sam through the process. When we hired Sam, I told her, like, look, we want to put this type of program in place. And Sam's been very good and has been very instrumental in putting this in place, along with some of the interns that she's oversaw through Valparaiso University. So that's kind of the overview of why we did it and why we're putting this in place, because I also think it's going to save lives. Yeah. At the end of the day, it's going to save lives. And that's what, police are. Number one thing is to protect people, to enforce laws, and this is the part of the protecting the people that I feel is going to be important. Okay, we don't overlook things, but when we identify things, I think we have to be responsive, and we have that obligation to our community to act. So that's where this all came about. I'm going to let Sam explain some more of that.
Okay.
Thanks. Chief already did a really great job of laying out the purpose of the program. I just want to add some info about the logistics and what we've done so far as we prepare to officially roll out the PARI program to the community. So as many of us know, traditionally people who are going through the cycle of using, trying to get into recovery through addiction, generally the first thought is not, let me go to the police department and ask for help. So there's a lot of stigma attached to substance use. So it's already very hard to come forward and ask for help, but it's especially hard when you think that the agency you're asking for help for might arrest you, right? So before we roll out the PARI program, we knew that it was really crucial to build relationship and explain what the program is and show that this actually works, and we're here to help, not to arrest. Through the PARI program. So something that has been really instrumental, I think, in building that rapport with the community and spreading the word about the program. We, early this year, received a grant through the Hub Coalition, formerly the Substance Abuse Council, to do a recovery-based art series throughout the community for 12 months. So we've done 2 of the 12 events so far, and the purpose of those events is to bring the community together around art with a recovery theme to engage with those already in the recovery community and show to those who are not and who may need to be, want to be in the future, that help is out there and that this is a community that you can turn to for help. So what actually happens is at those events is we are creating a large-scale recovery-themed art piece together. So everybody at each event paints their own little canvas, and then they're pre-stenciled, so you just paint in the lines, and then those little canvases at the end of the event go together to form a larger art piece that then is donated to an agency in the community to keep that conversation around recovery going. So we know that one of the big reasons why people don't ask for help, it's difficult, and there's a lot of stigma attached to substance use. So through those conversations and through the art, we're building community, we're helping people we're highlighting the work that the agencies where we're doing the art that they provide, but then we're also just creating a safe space where people feel they can turn to when they are ready for help. So our first event, we did a kickoff at Recovery Connection 2 months ago. Last month, we had all 5 local recovery homes come to Respite House 1, and we did a big art event there. And actually at that event, something unplanned but turned out to be very powerful was we had a woman who had lost her son to heroin who was there. And she asked me if she could speak at the event. We had also just lost somebody instrumental in coming full circle. He had graduated our mental health corps. He was helping form a crisis intervention team, and he passed away of an overdose recently. So we were able to do a little memorial at the event there and remember them and show the community that we're here for each other, and to encourage them to ask for help when they need it. So through those events, we're really able to do that outreach and to build the relationships that we need to do so that when somebody is ready to ask for help, they know where to go. Something internally that we're doing at VPD to help fight against substance use is increasing Narcan access in the community. So we know that if somebody overdoses, they're at higher risk to overdose again. They're using. So what we're thinking, what we've been discussing doing is to actually leave Narcan behind for someone when we respond to an overdose, leave Narcan there for them, which for those of you who don't know, Narcan is the life-saving strategy. It's usually squirted up the nose and can, saves you if you're overdosing. So we're strategizing on how to get Narcan more available in the community, just as a component of the PARI program. And then I also want to point out that while we haven't actually officially rolled this out to the community, people have been coming forward already, and people have been taking advantage of the services. So the program has been operating unofficially so far until we're ready to really roll it out. But through my position, ideally I'm a referral source, so I make external referrals to people to get them connected with other services that they need to help. Occasionally I do end up doing case management, and with those clients, a lot of times we uncover that a root cause of the many issues they're experiencing is that substance use. So while they might come to me for some other issue, once we have addressed that, then, we get to, oh, you're actually struggling with this, and this is why, you have this whole host of other issues going on. So through my case management and my work with the community, with my clients, and through word of mouth, people have been learning about the program and coming forward. So occasionally I get phone calls. Are you the person that gets people off drugs? I say, no, I don't get people off drugs, but I connect you with the places that do, that help with that. So I have been definitely having people come forward already, and connecting them with the services that they need to start their own recovery journey. But what this program actually looks like, there's a lot of different ways to go about it, and a lot of different ways it can look. The national PARI model is kind of the idea of amnesty. So if you show up at the police department and you say, I'm done with this, here's my drugs, here's my paraphernalia, whatever, then the idea is to not have to arrest them, right? It's to take that and then get them the services that they need. More commonly, though, people, whether it's we already have a relationship together, or it's them just showing up on station, or them calling me and saying, I need recovery services, usually there's nothing surrendered, and that's totally fine. It's just, we just want to be there to help people. So however they reach out, however people are referred to me, it's my job to then get them connected with whatever level of recovery services they need. So if they need a detox bed, we coordinate that. If they need a longer-term inpatient stay in a facility, we coordinate that. Some people, community-based recovery is what they need, so we'll do an application to a recovery home, or we'll send them to Recovery Connection for their AA, NA, Smart Recovery groups. It's just figuring out what level of care that person needs and then connecting them with it. So a couple of the biggest barriers that we've been trying to address as we get ready to roll out the program officially, one is the transportation piece. So one of the big barriers to treatment for people is the transport. How am I going to get there? When we don't have anything local, if you need detox, then we have to figure out how to get you there. So something at VPD that has been really incredible is our ability to strategize and use our own internal resources to figure out how to address these things. So one of our thoughts on the transport is to look at having our officers transport people to treatment, which is kind of very innovative, actually.
Off-duty.
Off-duty.
We pay our officers off-duty. We're not going to take anyone off the road to do this. Mm-hmm. It would be strictly a volunteer off-duty list.
Thank you. Yeah, so off-duty officers, whether it's me going with them or straight off-duty officers, it's figuring out how to transport people to treatment. Another of the barriers is facilities typically are not, even if they do 24/7 intakes, they're not typically bringing somebody into their facility at 2 a.m. So, crises are never convenient, right? So if we have somebody show up at 9 p.m. or 2 a.m., whenever, just not during typical office hours, it's a matter of figuring out what do we have to do so that we don't have to turn that person away and say, come back at 9 o'clock tomorrow, because more than likely we won't see that person at 9 a.m. the next day. So what we're looking at now is trying to form a volunteer group who could sit with that person and wait until we're able to actually secure that bed for them and then transport them there if that's needed. And lastly, the other big thing that we are that I'm navigating right now is continually building relationships with those treatment facilities. One of the barriers for some people to treatment is that if they don't have insurance or they're underinsured, a lot of facilities won't take them. So it's building those relationships so that when I call, I can know that there's somewhere that we can get that person into today. Not have to apply for Medicaid and then wait a couple weeks for it to be approved. Is figuring out where do we need to go to actually get them in the moment. And then I don't know if anybody wanted to add anything, but I would love to share a couple of our stories through the PARI program, the successes that we've seen.
Well, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I'd like to add just two things to that. Obviously, the amnesty that Sam mentioned, this isn't an alternative to arrest. Okay, this has to be a voluntary, someone come forward. It's not we come across someone on a traffic stop and they have drugs and paraphernalia. They say, oh, I want the PARI program. Okay, this is for people who truly want the help, okay, that aren't using it to get out of trouble. Okay, that's one of the things that we're going to make obviously clear or abundantly clear. And then just to touch base, what's important that Sam touched on was the reason why we want volunteers once somebody gets to that point. Okay, and when Sam said this could be the last time because they changed their mind, but my biggest fear is they come for help. We say we'll get with you in a couple hours, or we'll contact you, and then they go home or they go somewhere and they thought, well, maybe one last time. Okay, we use that could be the last time.
Yeah.
That they use before and they die. So it's very important that we and there's a lot of moving parts to this program that there's gonna be a learning curve to it. But I think by having Sam there, having her master's degree level education and your background in nonprofit, I think it's going to be a very successful program. And there's going to be things along the way. But one thing that we recognize is, we try things and then we adjust the situations. And that's one thing that you have to be, I think, with this type of program is you have to be open-minded to, okay, let's try to make some adjustments along the way. But those are the 2 points I really wanted to get out before you have any more questions.
No, I just had one quick question that this seems like a good time to ask. You keep talking about you're looking for volunteers. Are there qualifications that these volunteers need, or can just people listening to this call you up and say, I want to volunteer?
Well, we're going to work through that. I think we have to be very selective.
Okay.
On who a volunteer would be. Okay. What we're thinking and what I'm leaning towards is maybe more of church groups, things like that, people that have been vetted through the system. Okay. And I'm not saying just an organization, but like local pastors, things like that. Not just somebody.
Just some random
just
person.
Saying, no, this has got to be people who have specially, kind of talking to people and dealing with situations. And a lot of this would be more when someone comes to the PD for help after hours and to sit with, not necessarily a transport.
Yeah.
Okay, because safety is always an issue. Okay, you have to be careful. There would always have to be, in my opinion, 2 people doing a transport.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, just for various reasons. Okay, so right now I see the transports being done by officers off duty, being paid overtime, and with Sam. Unfortunately, I only have one Sam. Okay, and she can't be available 24/7. So we have to come up with some alternatives. But definitely a very thorough and solid vetting system for whoever is going to be a part of this program regardless.
That makes a lot of sense. And I'm glad you cleared this up, because sometimes I wondered if you had more than one Sam, because she seems so active and involved in the community.
Yeah.
So I've been impressed by that. So,
well, absolutely. I mean, and that's what's important, to have someone who's so connected to different organizations that, because again, this isn't, Sam is not someone that's going to, I guess, what do I say, give the, the therapeutic treatment.
Yeah.
But she's, has to be able to network and know where to send people based on what their issues are.
Yeah.
And I think she has that mastered.
All right. And those are the questions. I may have more later, but if you said you were going to get into some of your success stories so far.
Yeah, I just wanted to share a couple of my favorite successes that I think really beautifully show the difficulty with this work, because they did not look like success stories for a really long time. And I do want to point out, though, that when I say a success story, their battle is not over, right? So even when somebody has been sober and is not using, it's an ongoing process for them. So I do want to point that out. But so I had my very first unofficial PARI client. I was with this man who did not present as struggling with substances, with alcohol. We were dealing with an unrelated or seemingly unrelated issue when I realized that he was actually in withdrawal. So this was my first time doing it, so it took much longer than it probably would now, but I probably was on the phone for 6 hours calling to try and find a detox bed for him that would take him that day. So by this point, it's 7 or 8 p.m. Everywhere is pretty much closed. Facilities are frustrated that I'm calling so late in the evening and trying to get him in today. And so I finally found one place that would make an exception, and I told him, and 10 minutes later, we were coordinating transport, and he said, I'm not going to go. So social workers, it's client self-determination. We do what they want if they're not an imminent risk to themselves or others. So that was that, and we had our first recovery art series event 2 months ago, and I saw him there, and we hadn't talked or seen each other for since like October of last year. And about a week after that first art event, he called me and he said, "What was the name of that place you were trying to send me? I'm ready to go." And he went. So that was incredible, and showed me, we plant the seeds. Even if it doesn't work then, later on, a lot of times social workers don't see the benefit of our work, but it works over time, and a lot of times it takes a while. My second, I have a client in treatment right now, and it took probably 5 to maybe even 8 months for him to be ready to actually go to treatment. So it took that long to rebuild a relationship with him, to build him up and let him determine what path he wanted to take, and then to watch him lose everything except for his life to go to treatment. And he finally got to that point where, he lost everything he had been working so hard for, and we looked at each other and said, the only thing that matters right now is that you're still alive. And he went to treatment the following week. So those things make it all totally worth it. So I'm really excited to see all that we're able to do through this program.
Yeah, I know from my own people in my own life that, people aren't going to get help until they're ready for it. You can try to make them, mm-hmm. but if they're not ready for it, it's not going to be very helpful. So, yes. It's nice that you guys can be around, and so when they are ready, you're right there for them. So that's awesome.
Well, in addition to this, and I'd like to just bring up some conversations that by being the chief of police, that citizens have asked me. Okay, it's gotten a very overwhelming positive response. Number one, but there are some people that ask, why are police getting involved in this? Okay, what's the benefit? Obviously, what I've already talked about, but what we also see, and this is kind of beyond the PARI program, it's more of the social work way, what we have with Sam. So it saves money, okay? And that's important to some people, okay? Our taxpayers. It saves money because, by making the connection, and our officers make referrals all the time to Sam, saying, hey, we've been having this contact with this person on a regular basis, or this person. And it's a success program when the officers are embracing it and they're reaching out to Sam and referring people to her. Because what happens is people who need services, there's a good chance we continually have calls with them, okay? And a lot of times the officers don't know what to do other than respond, make sure everything's okay. They leave. Then they get a call again. They have to respond because there's a call. Everything's okay, and we leave. And there's that level of that costs money.
Yeah.
Okay. And what it also does is it diverts police resources to where they could be better used. Okay. So if we're constantly going to the same location about the same person, that's taking 1 or 2 officers off the road to be responding to other calls, to doing community patrols, whatever other police services are necessary. So what that does is this ultimately saves money as well. And that's an important factor to discuss when we're talking about this as a whole, okay? Because there is a financial component to that. And the most important thing, like I said earlier, is saving lives, reducing crime. But this is also a financial issue too. And I think over time, we're going to see a substantial savings. And plus, what it does is it also helps protect other avenues in the community. So I think that's important to point out as well.
Yeah. One thing that you keep mentioning, that it's not quite rolled out yet, that it's sort of unofficial. Is there a date or a timeline and what does rolling it out look like if you're already getting calls?
Well, I think rolling it out means getting the word out. Okay, and that's one of the reasons why we're here today.
So we're rolling it out right now.
It's ready. There's those little, those micro details.
Yeah.
Okay, or micro. You know what I'm saying. Details that we're working out, and really, I feel that the biggest component is most of the time Sam is available.
Yeah.
Okay. It's when she's not, and what do we do? Okay. And I think we're there. Our conversations over the last few days, I think, the conversations I'm going to have with certain individuals in the community that I think will embrace this and have been vetted.
Yeah.
That's the final component, and I think we're there. So I would say we're probably here as the official, it's rolling.
All right. That's good to hear. Yeah, I think this is a much needed thing for the community. I think it'll be very helpful, and I'm happy to see this. You said most people have been pretty positive about it. Have you run into any kind of challenges or roadblocks in implementing? I mean, you've mentioned some, getting people to trust the police.
Well, I think from my perspective, and I wouldn't even call this a roadblock, okay? It's people asking, why?
Yeah.
Why are you doing this? Is it necessary? So it's not a roadblock, it's a communication process, okay? And that's the biggest thing. Once I explain it, and once I put it out there, and I'm sure Sam's probably, I don't know if you've experienced the same thing, but once it's said, then you see like a light bulb go off and say, oh, okay, all right, well, yeah, this sounds like a good thing. I think obstacles, if there were to be one, is why are the police getting involved in this?
Yeah.
Okay, this is why. Why are the police doing it? Well, because the police are the ones responding. Okay, the police are the ones having the initial contacts. Okay, so that's why we're getting involved. I mean, our job as police is to prevent things. Okay, we do patrols to prevent speeding. We do patrols to prevent crime, to prevent things. Okay, well, this is the same concept of going into the schools and building relationships with our kids to prevent them from turning to drugs, alcohol, crime. Okay, this is just another component of that community engagement tool. Okay, and that's where it's important that we do this. So that's the why. And honestly, if our officers go, they identify, they network this over to Sam, and then Sam takes over. Now our officers don't have to deal with it.
Yeah.
Okay, so it just, I think, it just makes the process work better.
Yeah, instead of going back 10 times to the same
Right.
place,
Yeah. So
they refer to Sam, and then they only go back the one time.
Yeah, and once I explain it, or once we get the message and what this is about, again, no one really says, oh, that's so ridiculous. I think you're wasting your time. I think, like I said, it's really embraced once you get that communicative tool out there. Yeah,
no, I think it's a wonderful program. I guess that segueing off of that, I guess the big question, how do you get the point? I mean, I guess this is one way. Like, I would imagine one of the big obstacles is people feeling like they can come to you without getting arrested. And you've talked about that. I'm just wondering, is there some sort of is there a way to bring clarity to that so that they understand? And if I'm understanding right, like if you're getting pulled over, if you're involved in a crime and you have drugs on you, it's too late to take advantage of this program. So if I'm understanding right, it has to be sort of a voluntary you're not being contacted by police for other reasons. And then you can.
And statistics show across the country that have kind of put something like this in place. Number one, they're not usually bringing their drugs to us, okay? And if they do, it's such a small amount, okay, that there is some discretion that could be used. It's not like somebody, pulling in with a semi.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's a common sense approach to this that you have to have. I mean, let's face it, common sense. I mean, you always have to have that.
Yeah.
And this is one of those situations. And I think what we'll see is that it'll probably be more people coming to us that have just witnessed the loss of a loved one or a family member or a friend or a close where someone was saved by Narcan and their friends were witness to it. And then they said, okay, I don't want that to be me.
Yeah.
And I'm coming here because I've heard you guys have services, okay, or a segue to services. So that's what I think is going to happen.
Is there a particular number they call, or they just show up, or how does that work?
Just like all my referrals, people come in all different ways. You can just Google Valpo Police Department's number, call and ask for Sam. Some people just show up on station and say, I need the social worker. A lot of times now, other agencies will call me and say, I have this person, they're struggling with this. I give them your number, or can you call them, or can you show up here and talk to them? It really comes in all different ways, but if they just call Valpo Police and ask for me.
All right, ask for Sam. So that's wonderful. And let's see. I had a couple of questions here that I jotted down. Yeah, so let's say they do, and you touch on this again, but just to kind of clarify, someone does call, say they're drinking, they're drug addiction, they decide they need help, they call Sam. So just so they understand what happens then when that happens.
It's all very case by case. Sometimes people call and they know that they're struggling, but they don't know what kind of help they need or want. So we talk through that, and if they physically need detox and they're willing to go to detox, then we coordinate that. A lot of times somebody can go through detox and kind of transition into a longer term inpatient stay, but some people, if they're not having withdrawal symptoms, then we talk through it and I get an understanding of how long they've been using, how much are they using, that type of thing, and then we can coordinate community-based services. So sometimes somebody just needs, a sponsor and some AA or NA meetings, and that's sufficient, but for a lot of people it's not, and they need treatment. So every case looks different. And honestly, it's usually not a one conversation, I'm ready for treatment thing. It's building that relationship, talking about it over and over, and continuously encouraging them to get whatever level of help that they need. Sometimes people like to start with the community-based option, and then over time, that's not enough, and so then we take them to treatment. It always looks different.
So bottom line is, if they call Sam and you're talking to them, you don't send the SWAT team after them. You work with them and try to figure out what it is they need and what's going to help them.
It's building that relationship and letting people know that they can safely tell me. And if nobody is harming themselves or others, or then it's building that relationship till they're willing to go.
Okay, that's good to know. Is there anything that the community can do to help with this? Anyone listening wants to get involved, wants to help out. Is there anything that you...
I think that in addition to the PARI program, there are so many initiatives we have going on that if anybody is interested in getting involved, whether it's through PARI or just wanting to help out, reach out, because we will definitely find a spot for you.
Okay, that's good to hear. Yeah, we... not to steal your thunder, but we are also always looking for people if you want to get involved in our coalitions. But this is about them. So this is about the PARI program. So I understand that the program started in 2015 in a Massachusetts police department. And you've mentioned that people have been doing this around the country. Do you have any idea how popular this has gotten? Is this something that's really kind of taking off, or?
It's really hard. It's definitely, just like police social work, it's growing more and more as people realize that the answer is not arresting, just arresting. So you can look up the National PARI program and see, I think when I looked last, they had, I don't know, 20 or 30 logos listed on their website of different agencies that are participating, but that is not, that's minimizing it by far, because, we're doing PARI and we're not on there yet. So there's a lot of agencies that are participating, and the difficulty with knowing exactly how many or what model to take is that it depends on the needs of your community. It always looks different. And so there's a lot of departments, like we have, adapted the national model, and so there's many, I'm sure, that are doing it and that we'll never know about because they've made it their own thing. It's growing, we know that, but it's just a matter of what your community needs.
What are some of the examples of ways you've adapted from the national model to kind of customize it for our community?
Yeah, the name. The name, first of all. The National PARI is a AA. Ours is 1A. We wanted to take out that addiction piece when we say things like addict, right? We try to get away from that terminology and use a person-centered approach. So we took out that word. And so we are PARI, Police Assisted Recovery Initiative. So that was the most obvious change. But otherwise, always policies are going to be different. So we're working through that. We talk with other departments doing this and think about, what works for our department. But I think what I've seen a difference in our PARI program and others is the community outreach in ours seems to be a lot greater. It's really the nature of what the person implementing the program does, and I see that part as crucial, and so I'm very intentional about doing a lot of that outreach. That's something that I think I know other departments do it, but I'm just very familiar with ours, and I think that's one of our strong suits.
Yeah, I think the national model gives you a starting point. Okay, and I think that's where you build from it. And like Sam said, it's more community specific and needs within that community. And I think that's how I'm looking at the national model. It just gives you a starting point, because at some point, and I've had conversations with the Valparaiso fire chief about maybe having the fire stations as a PARI location. Okay, so if someone doesn't trust necessarily coming to the police department, maybe they'll go to the fire stations, and we have certain maybe people at each fire station that they're familiar with the process, and we start getting it out there. And the fire chief, Chief Dute's, very open to that, and we've talked about that a couple of years ago. And so that could be another approach where we make it our own, that I haven't heard other jurisdictions with this doing that. Now, I'm not saying it's not happening, but that's not something that we've heard, and that could be that's what we've had conversations on. But we have to start somewhere, and this is where we're starting. If it builds out, which I think it will, and it'll grow from there.
Yeah. Well, and Chief, you were mentioning earlier about how you have to be a little bit open-minded and flexible, and you try things, and if it works, you keep doing it. If it doesn't, you adjust. And I know this has not been very long, since 2015 in this department in Massachusetts, but is there any data so far to show the effectiveness? And I realize it's very early, and there probably isn't a lot.
I can't point to a specific department and say these are their numbers, because a lot of time it's very hard to collect. And it takes time, right? So we at this point, there's a lot of ways that we can analyze the success of our program so far, and we've surveyed the officers, for example, to gather their satisfaction on the social work program as a whole, which includes PARI. But it definitely takes a long time to be able to look at the numbers, whether you're looking at the cost reduction, or if you're looking at, we had X amount of engagements with somebody, we connected them with the social worker with PARI, and now we have this many. We are not at that point to collect that data yet, and I can't say that I've seen specific numbers from departments other than really advertising that they've had reductions.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Well, I realize it's early and there's not going to be a lot of data yet, but
stay tuned.
But to put things in perspective, I mean, Sam has up to 100 contacts or referrals a month, and a lot of those are internal officer referrals. But like she said earlier, people are reaching out, and as word gets out about what we're doing, more and more people are. And, that's a lot of contacts that she is making and referrals that she is putting out in a 30-day period.
Yeah,
so
that is a lot.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, it's making a difference, right? And people are seeing that. And, it's working.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to, like I said, and we give it a year out, and you're going to see some major things going on, and I think some major differences in our community.
The bottom line is it's hopefully saving lives, and probably, like you said, saving some time and money from the police department.
I think it's going to save lives, reduce crime, and save money.
Yeah, that's great. Is anyone else in Porter County looking at this program that you know of? Have like Portage or Chesterton or someone else reached out and asked questions?
No, I haven't had those conversations. I haven't.
There's a lot of interest. I've had, from Lake County, I've had a department or two reach out and have interest. And Griffith has had a police social worker for a while, and they have a PARI program that looks a lot different than ours. Like I said, there's a lot of departments doing different variations of this, or, even if they don't officially, phrase it as PARI or roll it out in a specific way, social workers are trained to whatever issue somebody comes with, we help, right?
Yeah.
So it's around.
And this also goes, Chief Mance and Erica Rios from Griffith, I think they were probably one of the first social workers, but their social work program looks very different than ours. Okay, and I've had several conversations with Chief Mance about what their program is, what ours does. Both, I feel, are success stories, but it's very different. Sam is our full-time police social worker, where Griffith is, if I understand, part-time police, part-time schools.
Oh,
well,
okay.
what's nice is Valparaiso Community Schools have their own social workers. Okay, so Sam works very closely because the social work isn't just mental health, homelessness, and substance dependency. It's also, connecting, when you have kids that are exposed to a traumatic experience. Sam will also reach out to our SROs, our school resource officers, our school social workers, and that's where she has so many different hats that she wears in one building. Okay, and that's she does that. She deals with elderly people in our community, okay, that are with dementia or wanderers and things like that. And so she reaches out to those family members that, she sees where there's an issue. And our officers will say, hey, you might want to reach out to them. She works with the fire department on issues. There's a lot of there's some calls that police don't go to, but fire do, like lift assists. Okay, well, if you keep on going and going and going, well, this way it brings, we bring Sam in and she works with the families to get them that help. So that's where I'm saying is the police social worker can look different from community to community.
Yeah. That sounds great. Yeah. Any plans to clone her?
Well, you know what? It takes a Sam to know other Sams.
That's true.
That's how I look at it. And, we're very fortunate to find Sam. And, what's nice is Sam came highly recommended from all different walks of life within our community. And when I first started making it known that I'm looking for a police social worker, we advertised, but a lot of people referred Sam to me. And I think getting that community input, because as much as I'd like to think I have all the answers, I need to rely on people to give me some of the answers or give me some of the information that I need to make a solid and a good decision.
Yeah.
And with the references that came supporting Sam as this position, I think it's been the right decision. And I think as we grow other, however it grows throughout the community, Sam's going to have a big input, and I would recommend outsourcing Sam to other communities looking for this to help be part of that selection process.
Mm-hmm. So I guess that brings up an interesting question. I know Sam's been on our podcast before. Are you homegrown? Are you from this area?
I moved to Valpo in 2016 to go to school at VU. So I did my undergrad there. I left for almost a year to get my MSW, my master's in social work, and then I was desperate to come back, give back to the community I'd been working in for some years. So, but I grew up in a little cornfield called Fowler down by West Lafayette.
Okay, yeah.
But this is home now for sure.
Great. Well, we're just about out of time, so. You want to just reiterate how people can help and how people can get in touch?
Absolutely. Whether it's helping with PARI or helping with the many other initiatives that we have going on, you can call the police department, Google our phone number, give us a call. You can email me at sburgett@valpopd.com. Valpo PD has a Facebook page. There's you can show up on station like many of my clients do and ask for me. It's pretty easy to find me.
So, and I know the answer to this, but where is the station?
355 Washington Street, Valparaiso.
Yeah, it's walking distance from here. So
yes.
All right. Well, we have a couple of minutes. If you have anything else you want to add, if not, we will wrap this up.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. So. Yeah. Have a good one, and thanks for listening to the listeners out there.